So it's currently May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and for the past year and a half or so, I've really been going through the ringer with quite a few different things going on, everything from loss of family members to relationship issues to struggling with sense of self-worth and value and direction in life. What the cuss am I doing here? All that sort of stuff. And it's been really, really difficult at times. And last year in May, I was like, oh, I should make a video about this and talk about this and kind of open up discussion and get people chatting about it and try to get rid of the stigma around talking about mental health issues, because there is a stigma around it, which is just so silly. I think it's something we all should be talking about much more frequently, much more open about, because, you know, we are all human, we all have brains, and if you have a brain, then you experience some sort of mental health struggle on a spectrum of it, so why are we not talking about it? So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do here now. And you know, me not doing this video has got my ego yelling at me, making me feel shame for it, because my ego just tends to beat me up quite often, more often than it probably should. I've named my ego Richard, by the way, because he's a dick quite often. So I'm hoping that me chatting about this now is going to help open up this conversation and get everybody here chatting about this type of stuff. And I think the fact that me still being in this a year and a bit down the road kind of speaks to what I'm talking about today, because time is a crazy thing, and the world we live in is not an easy one to live in. You know, you don't need me to remind you of all the cussed up things going on, from environmental issues, social issues, all sorts of struggles from a capitalist system that continues to destroy the world and create this ever-widening gap between classes. It's all cussed. You don't need me to tell you about that. And then on top of that, we all have personal things that we're dealing with, you know, as big or tragic as like a loss of a family member or a loved one, a dog, job issues, health issues, personal things, like family things. Like there's all the kind of like social checkpoints that we're expected to live up to, and if we don't, we feel like failures. There's all sorts of different things that we all experience and internalize on our own, and it is really difficult to deal with. It's non-stop. And I think there's this fallacy where we continue to project onto future things or circumstances, like, oh, if I figure this out, if I get there, when this happens, then I'll be happy, that's it, then I'm settled, and there's like this coasting moment. But like, the idea of a happy ending isn't true. Like, that's not real. Like, there is no ending in life. Like, even when your story ends, that's still just part of somebody else's story that becomes a chapter in their book. Like, there is no happy ending because there is no ending. It's all ups and downs, ebbs and flows. And whether or not you think you suffer from depression or have not, like, we all have highs and lows, ups and downs. That is life. Change is the ever constant thing in life. So we're all going through this stuff. We're all experiencing it in different ways. And for me, I find it really easy to look back on previous low points or previous things and be like, oh yeah, like, it's really easy to diagnose it in retrospect, to be like, oh yeah, that's what happened, then I did this, this, and this, and then I got out of it, and that's the story, and that's how I overcame that hard point, that dark point, whatever it may be. But in the present moment, God, it is so difficult to get through that. It is so difficult to find a way through, to find a passage, to find any sort of like way through. Check it out, Twinberry. I haven't seen one of these in a while, blooming all season. Beautiful. Anyway, it's really difficult to find a path through the storm that you might be facing. And sometimes those phrases like, oh, like, just when times get tough, the tough get going, and you just gotta hunker down and keep on trucking and get through it, and you'll get through it one way. Like, in a way, that's kind of very dismissive of the things that we are experiencing and going through in that hard, difficult moment. So I try to stay away from that. And this past year, like I've said, like, it's been really difficult to kind of find a direction through the storm. You know, when there's a storm cloud weighing down on you, it's really difficult to know which direction to go. Even if you've walked a similar path in the past, even if you kind of know, oh yeah, well then you do this, you journal, then you do yoga, and then you like stay active, and then you get, you know, like whatever things you've used in the past to solve those previous problems don't always apply. So instead of looking to the past, one of the things that I've been doing recently is kind of looking around in the present and trying to find active cases of things persevering and continuing to grow and thrive in the present moment, because I find that eternally inspiring. And I'm so fortunate to be living in a very beautiful place. All places are beautiful in their own way, but I'm right by the Pacific coast, and in the wintertime, storms hit this coastline non-stop. It's just like barraging this whole coast here. Everything is just inundated. And then you've got little trees like this. This is a Sitka spruce, Pisces atkensis. As you can see, it's pretty shrubby and small compared to its siblings here, these massive ones back here, growing in deeper soil, more protected, wind-buffed areas. But here, this little spruce has found a way to germinate in this tiny little crack on this rock here. So its roots are going down. It's very minimal space, very minimal soil, very minimal access to nutrients. And it is, in a way, self-bonsai'd, kind of stunted by the fact that it is growing in a very limited area. And if you look at the way it's formed, the winds from the storms kind of come from this angle, forcing its branches to grow on the leeward side, where it faces a little bit easier growing conditions. And then it's able to photosynthesize every once in a while when the storms stop, and it's able to kind of grow and continue eking by in existence. And I find things like this just so inspiring, because it's like when that storm is bearing down on us and we are soaked to the core, freezing cold, drenched wet, thick haze. For those of you in the Pacific Northwest know what I'm talking about, this feeling where it's just like gray, wet, coming down. You can't tell up from down. Everything's just, you don't know where to go. It's really difficult to be hard on, or it's really difficult to figure out where to go, and it's really easy to be really hard on yourself for not knowing where to go, for not knowing how to solve it, for not knowing the direction. And there's so much pressure from society to always be moving forward, to be progressing, to be going forward towards something. And sometimes I think there's a lot to be said about when the storm's bearing down on you, just hunkering down and sitting through it and enduring and finding ways to keep on keeping on, persevering, knowing that no storm lasts forever. Eventually all storms subside, and you know, then there's usually some sort of sunny day or clearing after that, some day when you can photosynthesize and maybe grow a little bit more, get a little bit deeper roots into those rocks and find a stronger foothold. So when the next storm hits you, you're just able to hunker down and endure that even more. And yeah, this tree might not be as tree-like or as rich and gorgeous as these big ones over here, but that doesn't mean that this tree is any less beautiful for all the things that it's gone through to continue to endure and survive. If anything, I think this tree has far more character, has a way cooler story, is a way more resilient, and like just a beautiful example of life's resilience. And I think that's really inspiring and cool. And I think we all should be more accepting and supportive and communicative and talk more about these sorts of things, because it is something that we are all going through in some extent, in one way, shape, or another, that is a very universal feeling. And we shouldn't shun it, we shouldn't hide it, we shouldn't feel shame for talking about it, for the fact that we are going through hard times, because that's part of life. So yeah, I hope maybe some of this little insight has helped you in some way. If you have any reflections or thoughts on things that you've experienced or your journey that you'd like to share, I would love to hear it. And I think there's just a ton that we could all continue doing to making this world a better, safer, healthier place for all of us, and ultimately one where we can all continue to thrive and grow in, just like this tree has. Because life is full of ups and downs. It's a bunch of waves. You just got to learn how to ride them.